Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on Superman and Lois, and this will be my DC FanDome Part 2 breakdown for the Superman and Lois panel. And obviously I'll be giving you guys all the new details that we got from this panel, and I'll be giving you guys my overall thoughts on it as well. But before I go over anything, however, you guys don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Okay, so the Superman and Lois panel was the one I was most looking forward to going into DC FanDome, since it was not only the newest show in the Arrowverse, but it's literally a Superman show. Now, despite me being excited for this TV show, I was more apprehensive than I was excited for this TV show, and that is due to multiple reasons, and one of them being Superman has obviously been nerfed a lot. He was more like a side character in the Arrowverse rather than a main character, and they made him seem a lot weaker than the character actually is supposed to be, and like he was seen to be weaker than like other characters who he's more stronger than, or he's meant to be stronger than. So those types of stuff I really didn't like, so hopefully they fix that up for the show. But also, I was apprehensive about the showrunner, Todd Helbing, since the seasons he worked on The Flash just wasn't good. Season 5, for example, that season was the worst season of The Flash. However, when watching this panel, I can say that Todd Helbing knows what he's doing, at least from what we know of so far. And what I can say is that Superman and Lois is the panel where we got the most information in regards to what's coming and what to expect, since the other shows really just did a recap on their previous seasons for the majority of the time. But this entire panel for Superman and Lois is just fresh, and we have some brand new information throughout the panel. But also another thing I noticed is that a lot of people aren't a fan of Tyler Hoechlin or Hoechlin as Superman. They pronounced as Hoechlin in the panel, but I usually say Hoechlin. But I don't know why they don't like Tyler Hoechlin as Superman. I think he's a great Superman. The way he plays Superman is just great. And when watching this panel, you can really see that Tyler understands this character. Now we find out that this version of Superman and Lois is very different compared to other adaptations to these characters, as in this version Clark Kent and Lois Lane are obviously married, whereas in the other versions they aren't. But for Superman and Lois, they aren't just married, but they have 2 kids as well. And in this panel we had Jim Lee questioning that, and that is obviously due to the fact that Clark and Lois look like they're in a very young age to have 2 teenage kids. So what's happening over here? And Todd, as far as I remember, touches upon the fact that Kryptonians age slowly. So that's the excuse he used for Superman. But they still need to explain how Lois Lane is very young to have a child. But anyways, we also have Todd Helbing mentioning that they use Crisis on Infinite Earths as a way to open this new door for the show. Because in pre-Crisis, if we remember, Jonathan Kent was the only child and he was just a baby. But post-Crisis, not only did Jonathan Kent grow up, but now Clark Kent has 2 boys and they are teenagers. So that was a very interesting thing to open the door for. Now Todd Helbing again touches upon this as well, and he says that as a father himself, having 2 teenage boys just felt like a really great way to bring this personal experience and bring this story, which is as grounded as it possibly can be with Superman, and as a couple we get to lean into Clark and Lois, not just as Superman and a famous journalist, but also as parents. What's it going to be like when they have jobs like that? So it will be very interesting how this will be explored, because obviously we will have Superman out there saving the world, but also Lois being the hero of her own in a way with her journalism arc. And with such tough jobs like that, it will be very interesting to see how these kids will be dealing with that. Also, these kids, Jonathan and Jordan Kent, are very separate to each other. And this wasn't in the panel, this was just mentioned before. Now, Jonathan Kent is obviously a real existing character in the comics, whereas Jordan Kent is just totally made up. But in the show, Jonathan Kent is this athlete. He's very social, and he's pretty much Smallville Clark Kent, if you guys have seen the show. I haven't watched the show, but it's basically Superman as in his teens, and that is basically what Jonathan Kent will be like. But when we then have Jordan Kent, who has like mental health issues, he's very antisocial and doesn't have his father's powers, whereas Jonathan Kent will probably have them. Although Jordan Kent does have the half Kryptonian DNA, obviously, I don't think he will be having the Superman powers. So just getting to explore these stuff is very interesting, and it's just very intriguing to see how Clark and Lois will be dealing with these kids. Now, the next thing we already knew before, but it is again mentioned in the panel, but for Superman and Lois, we are moving from Metropolis back to Smallville. Now, I'm not going to mention the reason to why that is, because it technically is a spoiler and it was basically leaked with the episode 1 script. So if you want to find out, you can find out over there. But I'm not going to mention it because I obviously don't want to spoil it for you guys. But all I'll say is, it is this tragedy that happens, and it is very interesting. And also Todd Helbing says that other than Smallville, the TV show, all the previous iterations of Superman were in Metropolis. So with their version, they wanted to do something different, where you can have these parents which go through a very tragic event that happen, and then this makes them move back to Smallville. Now, in Smallville, Clark will realize that it would be a lot easier to raise his kids over there because it's a more quieter area than the busy Metropolis. And also, supposedly they have their Kryptonian powers as well. It would be a lot easier for Clark to raise his kids and teach them how to use these abilities in Smallville over Metropolis. And life isn't too hectic in Smallville, so that's another reason to why they move back to Smallville. But also, it will be very interesting to see potential family dramas that could possibly happen with these kids and obviously Clark and Lois. This leading to Clark and Lois having to teach them stuff as well. So all of these stuff about the show is just very interesting in terms of the family aspects of it. Now, Bitsy Tulloch does also say how she's a mother herself, and how these two characters, Clark Kent and Lois Lane, are so dedicated to their jobs as Superman and as a journalist. With Superman obviously changing the world with the power he possesses, and Lois doing it with her job as a journalist. This will alienate the kids in a way due to, as I've said before, their dedication to their job. So how hard would it be that your parents have this serious job, but also have two very different kids who both have desperate needs? Now, Tyler Hoechlin does also add on to what Bitsy Tulloch says as well, and he mentions pretty much the same thing but in an uncle's point of view, but also how he himself experienced with the very struggles that the kids will be experiencing in the show. And he mentions that as a kid, his father was always busy since he was a doctor. So he touches upon the fact that balancing his work but also raising a kid will be a very challenging task. And the explanation Tyler gave as well, adding on to what he said, is just great. He says, "I feel like there's an interesting thing going over the years where what we do in our professional lives and what we do in our work lives do require so much more." And that's the thing about Superman, is that there's so much needed of him. It's like, when do you turn it off? Is it okay to turn it off? When is enough really enough? Because you do have other things in your life that might be in a different way, not as macro. It might be more micro, but it doesn't make it any less important. These other people that count on you for something you can only fulfill within that structure of that family, which in the point of view of this show is very compelling, and I'm very looking forward to what Todd Helbing visioned for Superman and Lois, unlike The Flash, because over here, as you can see, he knows what he's doing with these characters. And clearly, with what Tyler Hoechlin touched upon, you can just tell that he understands this character. He genuinely knows who Superman is, and I think that is another reason which makes him a great Superman. But they do also talk about other characters showing up, such as Lana Lang. Now, Todd Helbing says that when they go back, Lana Lang is there. Lana Lang is Clark's obviously first love, and I think it's an interesting dynamic as an adult. How do you deal with that relationship? And it will be very interesting to see that, because Lana gets to see Lois Lane and Clark's kids, but also Clark gets to see Lana's husband and her kids as well. So that is very, very interesting. And Todd Helbing also mentions that they did have to make up some characters, such as Carl Cushing, who's Lana's husband, but then Sarah Cushing, who's most probably going to be friends with the boys, and is obviously Lana Lang's daughter. Before it was Clark and Lana, I just like now how it has progressed into Jonathan and Sarah in Smallville, and obviously Jordan as well, which should just give us those Smallville vibes when the show was around. So yeah, that is just very, very interesting. But also we do have General Lane, who is Lois Lane's father. Now, General Lane is a very military guy, so his relationship with Superman is like a soldier of some sort. But his relationship with Lois is a little fraught, because of the way he took his job when he was a parent versus the way Clark does his job. So all of that messiness will be very, very fun. And that's what Todd Helbing says. Now, Todd Helbing then goes on to mention that how this show isn't just family, but also he mentions that there are a lot of set pieces and a lot of heroics. But to us, what's just as interesting is when Superman goes off and saves the day, or when he fights a villain or stops a nuclear reactor from exploding. Lois is out there haunting a different sort of villain and using her superpowers to just be as effective in the journalism side of things. So you see them as a team and this type of unstoppable force in a way. And another thing we knew before the panel was that we will be having two villains for this season, one for Clark and one for Lois. So the villain for Clark Kent and for Superman would be Captain Luthor, or the Stranger. He's basically this long lost multiverse version of Lex Luthor. For Lois Lane, the villain will be Maxwell Lord, who we've seen in Supergirl already, but I believe he'll be recasted for this show. But lastly, to go over, we do then have Todd Helbing mentioning that Superman will be getting a new badass suit. Now, I believe that was necessary because the suit he currently has is not good. Now, I was surprised that we didn't see like a concept art of anything of the suit, but I think they're saving that for another time. When will that be? I don't know. But Todd Helbing then does mention that the suit he had before just wasn't made for a show. It was made for just a reoccurring role. So that suit isn't, practical for the series. So finally, Clark will be getting a new Superman suit. For me at least, that is just very, very exciting. And I cannot wait to see our first look of the suit. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Tell me in the comment section down below what you guys think about Superman and Lois. I will see you guys in my next video.